Hello internet, welcome to me on my swivel chair. Welcome to another writing video born from my anxiety. Today I want to talk about how to pick your writing project because, you sort of think this is going to be easy thing that you're going to think about and you're like, oh, I have this idea, let's write about it. But if you're a writer, you know that is not how it works. You have like 50 million ideas swirling around in your head and you're like, which one do I talk about? What do I do? And then sometimes you're in the middle of one idea and then another idea goes, hey, what about me? I'm good. Come run over here. And sometimes you're like, oh my God, slow down. And I'm rambling. I wanted to talk about how you pick a writing project, how you stick to that writing project, and what you do when another exciting project comes into your head. Here's some news. I am querying my first manuscript, which sounds like a huge deal. I sent out 26 queries. I'm aiming for 42 rejections, the answer to life, the universe, and everything, obviously. However, just because I'm querying doesn't necessarily mean I'm excited about it. Is that because of the rejections? No. It's because of another idea. So here's the thing about another idea, is that no matter what you do, they're gonna be there and they're gonna make your old ideas feel inadequate, especially if you finished it and you've spent years and years working on it and this new idea comes along and it's like, hey, I'm better. And you're like, fuck yeah, you are. Like, what do you do when that happens? You have 50 million ideas swirling around in your head. I have started like 8 or 9 different projects. Each one has its own notebook, which is actually one of the things I'm going to talk about. Everything is serious and they're all things that I want to get to eventually. So how do you know where to start? How do you know which one to pick? Clearest answer is, which one are you most excited about? So I have 3 things that 3 different aspects of it. So, because sometimes the first one's not always going to be the easiest thing to tell. So which one are you most excited about? Which one won't leave your brain right now? We all know the feeling. You wake up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night and you just have this idea and it won't go away. If you don't get it on paper right now, you're gonna explode. That's the story you should be writing. But what if you're in the middle of another idea? I'll get back to that. You want to pick a project that you can spend 3 years on, not get sick of it. You want to choose that project that means something to you. It could be a personal story. For me, it's an experiment I really want to conduct. It's like, oh, I want to see how an audience would react to X character or X situation or X relationship. That's the sort of things I get excited about. Do you think you'll still be excited about that experiment in 2 years? Aspect number 2, is it relevant? Maybe you're thinking about an idea that jumps on the bandwagon of something that's popular right now. If it's not popular in 2 years, will you still be excited about it? If the answer is yes, go for it. There are always dystopian fiction stories being let out even though Hunger Games fever is over. That doesn't necessarily make the dystopian genre irrelevant. It just means that popular culture isn't necessarily paying attention as much, but readers are. If you're still passionate about it, that's the sort of story you should be writing. If you are just jumping on a bandwagon and you think, oh, I just want to tell this story because this is reactionary, then maybe that's not the story that you should be writing. It's all about whether or not you think you'll still be excited about this idea in 2 years. Aspect number 3, the most complicated, because sometimes this doesn't matter and sometimes it's everything. Which idea is best for your brand? I am not a marketer. I am terrible at marketing. I've been put in charge of my work's social media and I'm taking every marketing seminar that comes up even if it's not relevant because I don't know how to market. I have 75 Twitter followers. I'm a solitary person that likes to stay away from putting myself out there. I've always been that sort of person. These YouTube videos are hard, man. When it comes to your writing career, one of the things that I found really useful to think about, and one of the things that's making my queries not necessarily as exciting as I thought they would be, is something I talked about a little while ago. What is the first book I want credited to me? What's the first novel I want in my name? This is the story that's going to set me up for my entire career. Close myself off in a genre, is that going to limit me going forward? And that, for me especially, is really concerning when it comes to agents. If you want to self-publish and you don't want to worry about querying agents, this isn't going to be a concern for you necessarily. But it's much easier to find an agent that will take literary or contemporary stories who will also publish fantasy than it is to find a genre agent who will also publish literary. It's just a matter of what you think that, is going to be better for your career. But if you have a story that you know is going to be great for your career, but you just don't feel like you're in the right place to write it, don't write it. If you have something else that you're way more excited about, write that. Don't limit yourself. That's why it's aspect number 3. Like if you're really stuck, right? So first is, what are you most excited about? Second if you still don't know, are you still going to be excited about it in 2 years? Or are you jumping on a bandwagon? And if you still can't figure it out, what do I want this to say about my career? They are ranked. Only go to the career aspect if you're still really worried. What about if you get really excited about something while you're working on something else? I have an anecdote. Well, it's my current life. The anecdote is my life. I have spent 2.5 years working on one manuscript. I wrote it, edited it, sent it out to critique partners, sent it out to beta readers, sent it out to another round of beta readers, edited it over and over and over again, cut 50,000 words from it. And I sent out 26 queries to different agents on my road to 42 rejections. But I'm really concerned about it, and the rejections don't necessarily bother me as much because I'm working on another idea that I think is more exciting. And it's more exciting for a few reasons. The first is, it's better than my lost one. I wrote the first draft of my lost manuscript when I was 21. I wrote the first draft of this manuscript when I was 23, 24. It's going to be better. I had 3 years, 2.5 to 3 years of difference to improve on my writing. It's going to be better. It's not like, it's gonna be better. And that's just something you're gonna have to accept. It is strange to know, how much clearer the voice is and how much better the prose is, and thinking about, I know I can do this. Maybe this is what I want to put out. That's something that you're always going to come across when you're working on something, 2.5 years after the last thing you worked on, and you just know that it's better. That doesn't necessarily mean that your lost manuscript is shot because it's not as good as the one you're working on now. That's not what that means. But for me, it was definitely a little bit of an awakening, because it was easier for me to write this manuscript from a specific voice than it was to write the lost one from a less specific voice. And then I started thinking about things like, my lost manuscript was reactionary. It was about commenting on a genre and things that I got annoyed with in a particular genre. Whereas this manuscript is character focused and is more like an experiment in audience reactions and audience expectations. I'm much more excited about conducting an experiment than I am reacting to a genre that might not necessarily be as popular now as it was 2.5 years ago when I wrote it. That's just an idea I'm more excited about. This idea was so exciting to me that I couldn't think about anything else for weeks. I was constantly writing things down, constantly. I started it before I edited or character planned, which is not how I work, and still ended up with consistency because I knew what I wanted to do with this. That's how excited I was about the story. And there are things that I need to fix. It's not perfect. It's not necessarily great. But I know that that's the story that I wanted to tell. When it comes to, whether or not this affects the manuscript I'm querying, I'm still querying it. I'm not going to not query it. But the thing is, I'm not necessarily going to be as disappointed if none of the agents I've queried say anything back. Maybe I'll finish editing this and decide not to send out another round of queries. Maybe I'll wait on another round of queries until I see how my betas or critique partners are reacting to this manuscript, because something else is, I know this manuscript is more marketable. That should not affect your decision. But the fact is, for me, I know it is, because I know there's a gap in the market and I want to fill that gap in the market. That's more about my own personal preference and things that I've been thinking about. But I spent 2.5 years on this manuscript. I don't want to throw that away. Some people query agents for months and months, years, and never hear anything back. And sometimes it's, do I fix the manuscript or the query, or do I let it go? That's your own decision. I am not ready to let this manuscript go just yet, but it might be something that I put on the back burner for now, depending on how excited I get about this new one. What do you do when that happens? That depends on you. That depends on the stories you're most excited about, but maybe take it slower if that's what you want to do. It's up to you. If you're already querying, why stop? But maybe you just won't be as disappointed if it doesn't get picked up right away. So the biggest thing is, if you're in the middle of writing and you get this idea and you just can't get it out of your head, indulge it. You have to indulge it. You have to go back to the story you're already writing, but you have to indulge that idea, or you won't be able to sleep for like a month. Since I assign every idea its own notebook, I will go out, I will buy a notebook, and I will write all of my ideas in that. The great thing about each of your ideas having its own notebook or own Word file or Word folder or something like that, any single time you have an idea about that story, you can find that notebook, write it down, put it away. Just because you have this great, amazing idea that you need to jot ideas down for right this second, doesn't mean that you are now devoting all of your time to that idea. Get what's in your head down on paper and move on. Say you have 5 ideas in your head. You're working on idea A, and idea B has just been so exciting. So you wrote it down and you thought, okay, I got that out of my head and I'm back on idea A. But suddenly I get this random note for idea D that I had thought of a while ago, but I'm not focusing on right now, but I have an idea for it. I'll go pull out my idea D notebook, write it down, put idea D's notebook away, and go back. That way, when I am ready to go and work on idea D, pull out idea D's notebook, and every idea I've ever had is still there. You don't have to worry about forgetting the great ideas you have because you've indulged in those ideas. It's important to indulge in the ideas because otherwise you'll either won't sleep or you'll forget everything. And then you're not doing anybody any favors just because you're forcing yourself to focus on a project that right now you're just not as excited about. You're not always going to be excited about the project you're working on. That's normal. You gotta work through that anyway. Indulging a more exciting idea for a minute, a day, a week, a few weeks, and then putting it away and going back to what you were doing before is going to help you be productive. It's going to help keep you excited about writing, and it's going to make sure that all those great ideas you have stored up here end up down on paper so you never forget them. So that's my advice for how to pick a project, how to query the correct project, and what happens when you're not as excited about your current project before. That's a lot. My throat is hurting. I'm hungry. I have pizza. I want it. A lot of writing is what you feel is best. And it's so hard for people to hear that advice because you just want someone to tell you what to do. But once you realize, you think about, okay, what story do I need to be telling right now? You're gonna be much more happy with your choice. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Tell me about your WIPs. I want to know. Check out my Instagram in the description and my Twitter if you want to stay updated on my road to 42 query rejections. It's gonna be a super fun and slightly depressing time. I will see you next time. Bye.